What's going on, guys? My name is Arrow, and today we are self-casting spells with a Slayer. Before we get started, I just ask that if you like this content, to like the video and subscribe to my channel. It helps so much. It's the only way to tell YouTube that you like what I'm making. Alright, so we are playing a low life, permanent adrenaline, charge stacking, cold conversion Reap Slayer. I know it's a mouthful and we'll get into each piece, but I'm very excited, so let's dive in. Alright, so let's walk through each mechanic and explain why we're putting it into the build. So number one, low life. We're low life for a couple of reasons. One, because Pain Attunement gives us 30% more spell damage. It's a huge multiplier and it's absolutely amazing. We're also low life because we use Petrified Blood. Petrified Blood makes your maximum life 50%, and then you can only get over that with flasks, and then it makes your skills cost life and a few other things. The main reason that we use it is to reduce incoming damage. So when you get hit, when you have Petrified Blood, you take a portion of the damage, and then you take a portion of the damage as damage over time over the next few seconds. If you have really high recovery, which we do through Leech from Slayer and Life Regeneration, it effectively mitigates all of that extra damage, so you're just taking less damage. So low life and Petrified Blood interacts with the next thing that I'm going to talk about, which is Permanent Adrenaline. We take the Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame Jewels from Champion for first to strike, last to fall. This gives us Intimidate, which doesn't really matter for us because we don't attack. It gives us gain adrenaline for 20 seconds when you reach low life if you don't have adrenaline. So what happens is we constantly are regenning up to 50%, and then when we use one Reap, because it costs life, it puts us below 50%, and then we hit a life flask and we get adrenaline for 20 seconds. Every 20 seconds we hit our life flask, we get 20 seconds worth of adrenaline. Adrenaline is a massive amount of damage, move speed and cast speed. It gives us 100% increased damage, 25% cast speed, 25% move speed, and also 10% additional physical damage reduction. We also remove ailments every time we use our life flask, which is pretty nice to get adrenaline. So 10% physical damage reduction is really nice because that stacks with another thing that we're doing, which is charge stacking. As a Slayer, we take Masterful Form. And this is probably the number one reason that we're playing a Slayer for this build, because the idea around this came from, I want to use as many charges as I can and not be a discharge build. So Masterful Form gives you max endurance charges equal to your maximum frenzy charges. So if you have 6 max frenzy charges, you don't have to get extra endurance charges. Your maximum endurance charges just becomes 6. What makes this so interesting is Badge of the Brotherhood. Badge of the Brotherhood makes it so your maximum frenzy charges are equal to your maximum power charges. So we only scale our power charges. We have 11 at the moment. That gives us 11 frenzies from Badge and 11 endurance from Masterful Form from Slayer. So we have 11 of all charges And we actually get permanent uptime of Frenzy and Endurance from Replica Ferals. And then we have power charge on hit from a few sources. So we have permanent uptime of 11 charges, which is pretty incredible. So 11 power charges, crit, some other benefits from up here. We have the Void batteries, so we get extra spell damage per power charge. Frenzy charges, more damage, increased cast speed. They're incredible. It's just a more damage multiplier. To have 11 of them is 44% more damage on top of the cast speed it gives you. And then we get 11 endurance charges. 11 endurance charges is 4% physical damage reduction per charge, which gives us 44% flat physical damage reduction. And then we have full uptime of adrenaline, so now we are at 54%. With no other sources, we are at more than half physical damage reduction, which feels incredible. We also get a bunch of armor. We have 12,000 here in hideout, mapping 26, and then we get molten shell on top of that. So our physical damage reduction is amazing. It feels really, really nice. Next, we convert Reap, which is a spell, a physical-based spell, to cold. It has really, really good base damage, and we use a pair of gloves with cold conversion on an implicit and cold conversion from an Ashling Unveil as a prefix on the item, and that gets us to 60%. And then we get the last 40% here on the Cold Mastery. You could get this on a Watcher's Eye, but I didn't want to spend too much on the Watchers. Here we have a Watcher's Eye that's really, really important for us. We have damage leached his life while affected by Vitality, because it was hard for us to find a way to get leech into the build. And we also have base crit from Hatred. This is an incredibly powerful Watcher's Eye, but if we were to try to add cold conversion to it, it would become, I don't know, 100 exalts. So we pathed all the way up here, which is not great, but it works. So cold conversion there, we are 100% cold conversion. And lastly, let's talk about Slayer. So Masterful Form, we already talked about. This gives us, I guess, 8 additional endurance charges, just this node here. And because they're permanent uptime with Replica Ferals, we can actually benefit from the resists that they give you. So endurance charges gives 4 additional elemental resistance per endurance charge. At 11 charges, we have 44 all res from this node. Permanent uptime, you can rely on them. They're not, usually endurance charge resists are a waste, because if you don't have them when you go into a boss fight or whatever, then you're going to be at 30 all res, and that's not very good. So, but we can rely on them. So that is very, very powerful and very nice. So also with Slayer, we get Overleech, 100% increase maximum recovery per life leech. That allows us to leech more than we would have otherwise per hit. And then we take less damage while we're leeching. We're always leeching because we're low life and petrified blood. So any leech modifier that you have anywhere in your build will always be active, like damage while leeching kind of things that you can get on gloves and otherwise. Bane of Legends, 10% more damage if you've killed recently. That's great. We've pretty much always killed recently, except for bosses. 20% more damage with hits against unique enemies. So there's your 20% more damage on bosses. And then any bosses that have adds, both of these are up and you have 30% more damage. Very, very strong. And this is not restricted to attacks. You don't see really any Slayers playing spells except for Discharge, because most of the stuff on here has attacks as a requirement. Melee damage for impact. Attacks with this weapon, which is obviously not for spells. So there's only a few Ascendancy nodes that work for spells and attacks, and we've taken them all. And lastly, we have Headsman, which gives us movement speed when we kill an enemy. That's fine. It gives us attack speed, which we don't use. And then 20% call, which is so nice. When you're killing Shaper and then you get into the last phase, you hit him for 2 seconds and the fight's over. It feels really, really nice on phase bosses. Obviously, it's great for mapping. You only need to do 80% of an enemy's life in order to kill it. All right, so we've talked through all of the main mechanics of the build. I'll very quickly go through the tree. We have some very cool interactions on here. We went and got Prismatic Skin and Soul of Steel to give us some maximum resists, because our physical damage is so high, but our LE resistance isn't that great. So I figured it would be worth spending some points on this, because our damage is total overkill at this point. We get Champion of the Cause from some RMR. We get some more RMR over here, which is mana reservation efficiency. We already talked about Pain Attunement, and then we just grab the power charges here, here, and this one we anoint onto our Badge of the Brotherhood because it's not worth all this pathing. We take multi where we can, we take life where we can, and then here comes the elephant in the room. So this is actually not in the footage that I've included in this video for any of my boss kills. This is some tech that came out very recently. A tool was released to allow you to search for timeless jewels. Timeless jewels are normally something you just have to roll divine orbs on until you find one that's good. This allowed me to do a search for these. Increased damage per charge. So each one is specific to a charge, but there are 3 different kinds. So I searched for at least 4 of these charges, and then I just looked at what was available. And there was a bunch that were out there. But this one in particular is so incredibly powerful, and I'll show you why. Damage per endurance charge, damage per power charge, fire res, which was just nice for me, 80% increased armor, which I will be grabbing when I have one more point, crit chance to spells, 12% aura effect, damage per charge, 15% cast speed. So what I had here before was an unnatural instinct that gave me some AoE. I was able to take Constitution, which is here normally, for some life, and then I was just otherwise pathing through. The unnatural instinct was about 10% more damage and a couple of AoE nodes and some life. That's all I got from all of this. What I get now is more than double the damage that my build had before. When you combine 11 charges with all of these nodes that I have, it's 550% increased damage. Just damage. So that works on my Herald of Ice, so my explosions are more powerful. That works obviously on my Reap skill. It is so much damage. It's not necessary. Like I said, I killed Shaper and Uber Elder, and I killed the non-Uber bosses without this tech. But I wanted to share it with you because I think it's so cool. So 550% increased damage, and we get 80% crit chance, aura effect, cast speed. This is incredible. I really think GGG is going to nerf this. The fact that we can search jewels and find exactly what we need is so much power creep. I think it may be the biggest single moment in power creep in PoE history. This was available to me for 2 exalts. The reason I paid 2 exalts for this timeless jewel is because, and I asked the guy, and he said, it's because I didn't feel like looking to see if anything was worth it, so I just priced them all for 2x. It would have been 10C otherwise, but the guy happened to know about the new tool and just overpriced all of his jewels. So this was 2x, and then I got the Supreme Grandstanding Impossible Escape. I don't know, it's in here somewhere. But that allows me to leap to these points and not have to path to them, which makes this even more broken. Normally, with an Elegant Hubris, you have to waste points getting to these. You don't have to do this with this technology. It's incredibly broken. I actually think that GGG should fix this in some way. Don't allow us to search for these jewels. It's just too strong. I literally doubled the damage of my build for almost no effort. So anyway, moving on. All right, let's talk about the gear. Void batteries, we talked about. Additional power charges. Every power charge you get gets you a frenzy charge and an endurance charge, and it gets you all the benefits that you get from each charge. For example, 10% increased damage per charge from this, increased damage per charge from the charge mastery, all the stuff you get from power charges. We actually originally had Disciple of the Unyielding and Disciple of the Slaughter taken with a Thread of Hope from this spot. It ended up not being worth it because we had so much increased damage already. It wasn't worth taking. Replica ferals, I haven't found another solution to get constant uptime of endurance charges. So unfortunately, this expensive item is probably mandatory. Unless you want to fix your resists otherwise, then you can just get endurance charges on from Enduring Composure or something like that. But this makes it very, very simple. It's a good item. Aspect of the Cat is really nice. So, Replica Ferals, very expensive, but it is what it is. We crafted this Blizzard Crown, +1 power charge, minus cold res for nearby enemies, +1 blood charges, which is for our Reap. It allows us to essentially get more damage on single target. And it's got a little bit of life. We crafted our aspect on here. It's a whatever Recombinator helmet. Our rings, very cool. +1 power charge and frostbite. Made this with Recombinators. The ring is pretty trash otherwise. It has life and chaos res, and then the rest of the mods are whatever. Our other ring, we crafted this from scratch. We had the +1 power charge by itself, and then we put a lot of effort into a lot of currency into crafting this. These +1 charge rings are not mandatory, but they're so easy to get with recombinators that for me it was worth having them. It gets us to 11 total. Without these rings, you'd be at 9 total. It's a significant damage loss, but not mandatory to make the build work. These boots, just really, really nice quality of life to add speed to the build. Onslaught, elusive, tailwind. The gloves we talked about, cold conversion. I actually don't even use the spell suppress on here, but I crafted these gloves for another build, and I figured I would just use them because it gave me everything I needed. Headhunter. There's been a lot of talk about the quality of Headhunter this league, the ups and downs. It's obviously very powerful right now. For a build like Reap, Headhunter is perfect. It scales massive amounts of AoE, which makes your clear better. It gives us Fizz as extra type of mods where we have, because we convert, so any Fizz as extra mods are good for us. It's just an incredibly powerful tool, and for a build like Reap, it doesn't get any better. Mageblood would be way worse for this build. Talk about the flasks. Taste of Hate, great. Fizz damage as extra cold is powerful. Fizz taken as cold further limits how much Fizz damage we're taking. I could actually roll this better. I didn't find that I needed it though. And then move speed, armor. I took spell damage, leeches energy shield on a flask. Even though I only have 188 here, when you're in a map, you very regularly steal mods that give you energy shield. So having a way to recover it is really nice. And then this flask is, I actually had a Bottled Faith in here, but I borrowed it to put it on another build and I didn't put it back in. So this should be a Bottled Faith and not an armor flask. All in all, I had an absolute blast making this build. It was so much fun to play. Clears well, it kills bosses. It did everything that I wanted it to do and way more. To be honest, I didn't expect it to feel as good as it did. I had never played Reap before. It was actually just a viewer that recommended that I try it. I theory crafted this build on stream. I came in with the idea that I wanted to play a Slayer that used Masterful Form and Badge of the Brotherhood, and that was pretty much all I had. And I just kind of came up with the build in a few hours. We talked back and forth with chat and came up with some fun ideas, some good ones and some bad ones, and we tried them out and we ended up with this, and it was awesome. We had a really good time making it. Thank you for checking out the video. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, I'm live almost every single day on Twitch, twitch.tv/AER0__. Like and subscribe, it really helps. Thank you so much. And as always, take care.